Hi, Faith. Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday to you too. At least we are into some really nice weather and I am so excited. I think we're done with winter. I think we're really
Yeah,
done.
I really do too. And I love these rain showers that we're getting, kind of sprinkling joy onto all of our plants and you with the trees around. So I feel like we're into vibrant spring and potentially summer coming up too. So I'm Lois Melkonian.
And I'm Faith Donaldson.
And we are the hosts of More to Life with Faith and Lois. We have a podcast that we release every week. And for the last, 10 weeks, 11 weeks, we've been really focusing on the impact of COVID-19. And then we've been bringing you some videos so that we can share with you how we are processing even through the week, because we know this is a challenging time for all of us as we are doing our best to stay safe and to stay healthy. So you can go to More to Life with faithandlois.com. That's our website. And we are also on every single podcast platform that you might imagine. And please subscribe and let us know what you think of our conversations with you as it relates to the coronavirus.
We would love that because we're all going through different experiences, and your unique experience might give us some deep insight as to how to respond to the rest of the audience. So, yeah, let us know how you're doing.
So we would like to kind of follow up on what we did in this week's podcast, and we want to share how to return to center during this coronavirus era. And the way we came up with this idea was we had talked about how to be centered and how to stay present in our last podcast. And so some of you are wondering, like, well, how do you get back if you get off course? Because that's what's happening these days. Sometimes it happens several times in one day, but for the most part, we feel like we're doing what we need to do, and then something takes us off course. So how
Mhm.
do we get back? So Faith and I are just kind of ping pong with a number of ideas of how we get back on course. So Faith, how do you get back on course if something pushes you off for a time?
I go back to the things that have worked for me in the past. And then if they don't work, I ask myself, why isn't it working? And then I replace it with something that might come to mind that might be more helpful. But it always starts with relaxation, some good breathing, maybe stepping outside, taking in those wonderful deep breaths of fresh air, a short walk. Journaling for me, as I've said many, many times, is monumental in getting a lot of what's inside of me outside of me so that I'm not carrying it anymore.
Yeah.
So, because if I carry it, I really do get frustrated or I feel upset or I feel off kilter. So, by getting it out of me onto paper, I can see it for what it is. And then I feel much more centered after that. But doing the things that work for me, and that's what I encourage everyone to do. What works for you? What brings you down? Oftentimes it's music. I use music a lot too. That's another thing I do because that actually de-escalates anything that's going on inside of me to a place where I find more peace.
Mm. That piece about asking questions is so powerful for me because I find that when I say, all right, Lois, what's really going on here? If something has happened to get me off course, then
Yeah.
it requires that I either verbalize it or write it down as you suggested, or even think about it. And when I switch from this overarching, everything is wrong, I can't go outside like I want to, I can't do the things I used to do, to this one specific thing that is taking me off course, which may have something to do with those things, but not everything, I then am able to bring it down into something that's manageable. Because usually when I get off course, I feel that my life, I've then become completely unmanageable. And that's not true. It's a lie that we tell ourselves, and then we spiral and we share that frustration and discomfort with other people. So the
Mhm.
first thing I try to do after breathing, which is a really good thing to do, and slow that down, is to ask myself, what is going on here? And when I identify it and put a name to it, it no longer becomes everything, but it becomes one thing. And most often I can deal with that one thing because you know what? I'm probably going to have another one thing in a few minutes or tomorrow. I will.
Exactly, exactly. And you pointed out something really important, Lois, that feeling of being trapped, like you can't get out of it, like this is going to go on and on. And if we feel like we are trapped, that we are enclosed, then panic is going to start rising up, and that only makes matters worse.
Yeah.
So it's so important to prove to yourself, I'm not trapped. I have choice. I have things I can do. I can do the some of the suggestions that we're making, but you can do so many more possibilities of what can help you feel I'm not enclosed and trapped and confined, or that you're being deprived. Deprivation, it
Mm.
will trigger us like crazy.
Yeah.
So if you need that extra scoop of ice cream, for heaven's sakes, have it. You know, skip
Mhm.
it tomorrow or something. What do you need in this one particular moment to help you feel more centered and not feel trapped?
One of the things I've noticed when I am coming out of my trappedness and feeling deprived is the conversations I have with other people and where I allow those conversations to go. Because I do discover that in these wonderful Zoom calls, happy hours, dinner conversations, whatever you want to call it, when I bring my full self and what I hope for and what I look forward to those conversations, it's wonderful. If I allow myself to sink or feel sorry for myself or listen to someone else's story and make, oh, I can resonate and this is even worse for me and go and dig a deeper hole, I can end up worse than I was before. Because
Mm.
early on we said stay connected, stay communicating. And I have found that it's challenging for me with some people who are not enjoying, I shouldn't say who enjoys this, but I mean not finding joy or even little pieces of it during this time. So I encourage you, because not everyone is going to have the same perspective as you do. When you have that little bit of joy and good perspective, share it. And if somebody doesn't agree with it or thinks that, you're being too Pollyanna-ish, that's okay. That's really okay. I've gotten to embrace my Pollyanna outlook on things and how I'm moving through this time. Not because everything is a silver lining, but because I want to function and go about my day and contribute in a way that shows positivity. So I am really checking on the conversations I have, and I'm still having them with people who aren't in a great place, because we're all going to be there at some point. But I try to move through them in a different way and bring one element of joy. And I think about that, by the way, before I even get into a conversation. What one element, positive, beautiful thing can I bring? Even if the rest of what I'm going to share is something that's kind of hard, bring one positive thing.
And we've mentioned this before, but one of the things I really find some of that joy in is finding what can I do to
Mhm.
make life a little easier for someone else. And sometimes it's a donation, and sometimes it is a phone call. Sometimes it's sending a gift through Amazon to them, just so that they can receive something, and to help with that deprivation feeling that you might be encountering. So it's amazing how when we give of ourselves and do something and not just be so focused in on what we're experiencing, then our hearts lighten and our minds feel a little more positive, and being a little bit altruistic in areas of our life just make life more balanced. And that's what we're talking about. How do we step into bringing more center, more balance to our lives as we go back through this new transit, enter into this new transition that we're going into? Because
Mhm.
each transition, Lois, is a new phase, something we
Yes.
haven't done before. And so it's going to tip the scales for us.
Yeah.
Okay, so tip them back.
Exactly, exactly, right. And that's why we're focusing today on how to return to this center during this and era that we're in right now. And one of the things I keep reminding myself of is, even though things may never go back to the way we used to have them, that still what I'm living today is not necessarily what's going to be tomorrow. So when you have a more positive and optimistic outlook on life, that is it, that we recognize that whatever we're doing is temporary. When I get to that place of this negative thing happened, so it's going to always be that way, that's what turns into pessimism. So I try to think all the time, this is a season. Whether it's the spring into summer season, which we in those states where we have drastic and dramatic changes in seasons, we know what these are really like and we can really feel them. I think about that for this too, that this too will move through. It may never completely pass. Our lives may be different, but our lives will look different And that's what I like to think about as a not as a positive outlook as to what's next, is that this is here. Yes, I'm facing it. And who knows what tomorrow will bring. And very well, it might be better and more
Mhm.
exciting and something different that I get to step into.
Mhm. Different is a new adventure.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be negative. It
Yes.
means it's a new adventure. So step into it, and that can really help you feel more centered and more empowered to live out your life in the way that you would like to live it out.
You know, I've also really explored the books that I'm reading right now. And where am I getting joy? Where am I getting an input into my life with words of kindness, wisdom, mystery, fun, science fiction, you know, whatever it is you like to read, but bringing things in that are gelling, stirring things up in my brain. And I don't know about the rest of you, but have you been writing during this? Have you written notes? Because we are now living in an era that we will remember for decades. And our kids and grandkids and nieces and nephews will always refer to 2020 this way. So I'm wondering how many of us are keeping notes of how different this has been and what we'll think, you know, years down the line when we look back on this year and what it did for our relationships with each other, for our work style, and just how we function in this world.
We are living history,
Yeah.
and it's really good to keep a historical log of your life to pass down. That's a wonderful idea. And even taking photos and images of how you're doing. If you're wearing a mask, take a photo, take a selfie, and put it in your scrapbook. What a gift that you could give to your grandchildren and great grandchildren of the future. So, yeah, wonderful idea, Lois.
Well, I think as we're talking about getting centered, one of the things we want to remember is that I love it, Faith, that you started. Do the things that you know bring you down. You know, most of us don't have pacifiers anymore. Just because I'm around a baby now, I can see that. But if I needed to calm a baby, I give a pacifier for one who will take one. So, what is it that you do to soothe yourself that isn't harmful, but to really soothe yourself and bring yourself to that place? Use those tools. They're gorgeous because they work. And if they don't, please go and check out our podcast because we did give some really concrete ideas. But begin with breathing, you know, make sure you know who you are, where you are. And finally, I'm remembering for myself, get enough sleep. During this time when there's enough going on
Yeah.
around us, the one thing we don't need is to have such loss of sleep that we're frenetic just because our brains are going, ah, we're just exhausted.
Yes, the basic things. Always go back to basics. When you're in doubt, go back to basics. You need water, you need air, you need sleep, you need rest, you need some quiet, you need some activity. Those are all things that make your life work well. So draw from that. Don't forget them.
And please remember, you're not alone. Faith and I are here to assist you, to walk with you in any way that you might see fit. You can go to moretolifewithfaithandlois.com and email either of us or both of us, and we're there for you. And we'll also be back on Tuesday with another podcast.
We look forward to it. Goodbye.